Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you this morning, and apologies again for the slight delay, again due to technical issues. My name is Maria Fleming. I'm the chair of NCFA, the National Campaign for the Arts. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Minister Catherine Martin. Thank you for joining us, Minister, who was instrumental in delivering the Basic Income for Arts pilot scheme. This scheme has been operated by the Minister's Department since October 2022. We're also joined by my predecessor, the previous chair of NCFA, Angela Dorgan, CEO of First Music Contact, who was a member of the Arts and Culture Recovery Task Force, who recommended the Basic Income Scheme to the Minister. We are also delighted, and probably most importantly, to be joined by Owen Carrick, who's currently in residence in Centre Culturel Irlandais in Paris. And Owen is a recipient of the Basic Income. Thanks for joining us, Owen. Minister, I might start with you first and ask you why, as Minister for the Arts, you felt it was important to start this Basic Income for the Artists pilot scheme.
Thanks Maria. Gur mágad agus dús bhhailm a bhuichas ag bháil le gach duine atá linn inniu líne mar aire atá le freagras as na hEalaíona bhór an privilege dom an tionscnamh policy seo a chóirt I gcríoch agus is cúis mór áhastam go bhfuil mé inisin an na céad fópar taide a tháinig an céim fioltacht a reinslibh. Thanks, Maria, and also thanks to Angela and Owen for joining us today, and to everyone who has joined online, and a particular welcome to the artists who are participating in this scheme. I think today really is an important milestone in with this publication of a first in a series of papers based on the data collected as part of the Basic Income for the Artists, the BIA as we call it, and as you said, it's now over a year since the payments began. I suppose why it was important to me, Maria, I come from that background myself. I'm a musician. I studied music at college. I taught music for 20 years. I was brought up completely immersed in the arts. My dad was an artist, and my brother's a poet. We all played instruments and sang, and indeed I married an artist, and he has my father's easel. And even I can see now that I'm delighted. My husband is actually preparing for an exhibition, and it's lovely for my children now, the next generation, to see their father with the easel out in the living room and painting as we're chatting and doing things. And that's how I was brought up, with that deep appreciation for the arts, surrounded by it. It was just part of who we were. So it was, I never ever foresaw that politics would come into my life, or that I would become the Minister for Arts. So it's an incredible honour to work directly for and behalf of this sector. And obviously then, because I was brought up by it and surrounded by it, and all my, I have an awful lot of friends from having studied in college and who are involved in various arts forms. A key objective of mine was to support our arts practice. And I do believe that this government has done more than any other in our history to demonstrate to artists, and I hope artists feel that, but to really demonstrate to artists that, you are valued. You are essential to the fabric of our being here, and that it's not just a case that we roll out artists at key moments, but that we value them all the time, and the contribution that they make to enhancing our lives. And I really hope that is understood by everyone. So this Basic Income for the Arts was, I hope, seen as a signal to the artists, but also to society, and to the international community, that we value our artists. But as I said, there are other things we're doing. The Arts Council funding, the Screen Ireland funding, the Culture Ireland funding is at record levels, and as critical as those supports are, I believe the Basic Income for the Arts is a game changer, and that emerged from the Arts and Culture Recovery Task Force during the COVID times. And I have to say, maybe it was an unusual response for a minister, but when I saw that as the #1 recommendation, it excited me. And I was just immediately focused on, how can I do this? How can we deliver it? This is what's needed. We need data. We need evidence. We need to support our artists. And I suppose lucky to have amazing officials who, shared that determination with me, and I suppose persistence and determination is what helped to deliver this and get the support across the coalition. Because I'm talking to those who need it, who know this firsthand, but too often artists struggle for the level of income to meet their basic needs. Too often that struggle is a distraction from what should be their sole purpose, their sole focus, which is their creative output, whatever form that takes. So the data we are publishing today makes clear how difficult it is to pursue a career in the arts. That's the stark reality. The papers also show that the basic income does appear to be having a positive impact on those who are receiving it. And that reaffirms the view of the Arts and Culture Recovery Task Force, who made that recommendation, that number one recommendation in the report to me. And of course, this is an issue for artists across the world, and there's a lot of actually international interest in what we are doing here. And just a few weeks ago, the European Parliament adopted a proposal for an EU framework to improve the living and working conditions for culture and creative workers. So I'm really proud that Ireland is leading the way, and so we should. In my opinion, because we are that land that are blessed with artists of all types and creative workers. So I'm delighted we are leading the way in terms of research, and the research element to me is of equal importance to the actual payment, and may actually be of more importance by the time we get to the end of this, because we need the data, we need the evidence to make it undeniable. At the end of this 3 years, that it needs to be rolled out to each and every artist. That is my hope, and that's why the control group is very important too. That we have that comparison, but I think just providing that basic income, we're seeing it's allowing the artists and the creatives to focus on their artistic output, and to be in a position to increase their earnings from their creative practice as a self-employed artist and creative. So in this way, I would like to see the basic income making the arts a realistic career choice. And that's important, a realistic career choice for anyone who has that creative drive. So that this pilot research scheme, which is examining the impact of the basic income style payment on artists and creative arts workers, it's over a 3-year period. And I suppose it's in recognition that there is a vast body of often unpaid or underpaid time that goes into the making of creative work that we all enjoy, and so we have to recognise that. And I do believe it's the signature innovation of the government in terms of support for the arts, and an absolute key priority for me. But again, I want to thank the officials in my department for making that a reality. An awful lot of work and engagement went in to designing this scheme and the research element of it. And I'm just delighted we are where we are now. And as I said, some of the findings show how difficult it is, and that's what we need to hear. We need to get the facts around this. That's essential. It has to be a realistic, fact, evidence-based project. And I'm delighted we are where we are 1 year on.
Thank you, Minister. Your passion for the arts and for this project definitely comes across, and we appreciate that and thank you for that. And I'd like to echo your thanks to the staff in your department who are working on this. There is an incredible amount of work, and the care that went into ensuring the way this would come about and how it works is evident. I'd like to move now and talk to Angela Dorgan, previous chair of NCFA. And Angela, it was the task force that you were a member of who recommended this to the Minister. And as the Minister said, you put it as the number one recommendation. Can you tell us why the task force believed that basic income was an important way to support artists post-COVID?
Sure. Well, I suppose for a bit of background, when I joined NCFA in, I think, 2016, 2017, then became chair in 2018, we had put in place an annual research survey every December, which a lot of people here are probably like rolling their eyes going, I remember, we had to fill it out every year. But it was a brilliant way for the 8 volunteers on the task force to know that we were speaking to what artists needed and what the sector wanted, and everything that they needed us to speak on their behalf for. So basic income started coming up as an idea in those pieces of research. So when I became chair in 2018, and it was a moment of everybody took one step back, not I took one step forward. And I became chair, and we started then to put it on our pre-budget submissions. So then when COVID happened in 2020, and the programme for government, of which then Minister Martin became the Minister for Arts, suggested a basic income pilot, then we went for it. And I think we gave it everything we could. I think all of us on that volunteer committee became very familiar with basic income very quickly. And I think I could probably do a PhD on basic income now. We had fantastic help from people like Social Justice Ireland and Basic Income Ireland. But what we had, I suppose, and it's, having listened to the minister, it's no surprise to anyone, we had an artist in situ as our minister. And I've been doing talks around the world on basic income, trying to get all eyes on Ireland. Everyone's really interested. I would echo what the minister said there. But I think I get lost in translation when I'm there and try and explain we had the Carlsberg of arts ministers, because I don't know if they all had that, the Carlsberg ads over there. But I think it was a perfect storm. COVID aside, COVID wasn't good for a single artist, but it focused everybody and it allowed us to drive our campaign, our Hearts and Minds campaign. So not only, and I think it's important to note that while the minister was considering the task force, and then when the task force laid out the plans for the sector, she had already secured so many millions of euro. I think it was 95 by the end of that first year of COVID, extra for the sector. And I think I don't think any of us can underestimate the political clout and when you talk, Minister, about your officials leaving everything on the field, I think we all need to acknowledge you also left everything on the field. So when it came to the task force then, we had loads of engagement with the sector. We had loads of Zooms, making sure that we were all on the same page and that we were speaking not for just the 8 people on our committee, but for everybody in the sector. And may I say that it was just such an honour to be that voice of an entire sector for, in my 27 years in the arts, was the first time everybody had come together under one single issue. Different genres have their different challenges, but the one single issue is we all acknowledge that to write a book, to write an album, to prepare an exhibition, to rehearse a play, to write a play, artists were working for free for a big chunk of the life cycle of their work. And so when we brought basic income as NCFA's ask on that task force, it was amazing to see the 18 others, just no questions asked. Everybody was like, that is our number one ask. So when we came back to the minister, NCFA had already been talking to political parties, oppositions to bring them on board, but also it was like, we were like, here it is, it's your football now. And I think the fact that it came into being so quickly and without question, I don't think the minister ever questioned whether or not this was a good idea. It was obviously her party had put the basic income trial at all into the programme for government, and that's why we got to where we got to. So it was a collective effort from the sector, but I think it really helped that we had an artist as our minister and our champion, and that's what got it over the line.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Angela. And I suppose what I want to do is move now and talk to Owen, who for me is the most important person in the room, who is an artist with lived experience of working on basic income. And Owen, your voice and your opinion on this, as with the voice that we hear in the reports being launched today of the artists on basic income and those in the control group, are so important. So thank you for generously sharing. Just to let people know that the basic income, it is anonymous. So Owen has selected to share his story with us, and we really appreciate that. Thank you, Owen. But maybe you'd share with us the experience of receiving basic income and the impact that has had on your creative practice, Owen.
Sure. Public speaking is not part of my role as an artist, so I'm going to work from some notes, if that's okay. So as artists, we often work with a sense of financial precarity, more or less all the time, actually. There's no salary. Some projects take longer than others to make, and you need to take time to develop your practice so the work you make can evolve. With the precarity, it's stressful and I guess often counterintuitive to making art. It creates burnout and ultimately a lack of diversity in the industry. So with the sense of stability that the pilot afforded me, I've been in a very fortunate position to be able to think about creating work that was both creatively and financially more sustainable. So I spend time building my practice, taking more risks in the work I'm making, planning work across a longer timeline, and working to internationalize my practice so the work that I do make in Ireland gets to spend additional time in front of audiences elsewhere. So without it, I know I would be jumping from project to project to survive, because that's what I was doing before.
And it's like, Owen, you devised this in order to give us a demonstration of internationalizing your practice by speaking to us from Paris. So, yeah,
I feel very, but that is absolutely part of it. Like, I've been able to take time to focus on expanding my, like researching, spending time researching. I'm in Paris now getting to do that, and I feel very lucky.
Completely. And we will all benefit from the added work that artists get to do researching their art, because I'm very excited about the art that we will see as a result of the time that's been afforded to you. I think it's going to be a game changer for Ireland. Minister, I might come back to you. And while we're all talking about a very good news story today with basic income rolling out, there is some stark information in the reports that you're publishing today. I think what's fantastic about the information in the reports is not only do we get to see the difference of impact and experience between those receiving basic income and those within the control group, but what the research also shows us is the difference between the living conditions for artists compared with those in the general population. So I wonder if you could share with us some of the information and maybe let us know what surprised you about the results.
Sure. So we're publishing three reports today compiled from data collected from the BIA participants. So 2 reports, Demographics of the Arts Sector, and a second called Artwork Perspectives are the first 2 reports in a series of papers called A Portrait of the Arts Sector, which draw on data collected before the payments to the BIA recipients, and they will illustrate conditions for artists before the introduction of basic income. As I sort of referred to earlier, these papers do not make for easy reading. And I think all of us understood that conditions were difficult for artists, but now we have stronger evidence that that is really the case. And from the outset, I have been strongly of the view that the basic income scheme offered us a unique opportunity to collect better data on the arts sector. So, as I said earlier, while the payment is important, it's having that gold standard research programme underpinning the programme. That's what's of vital importance in informing how we will support our artists. So the third report we are publishing today is the first impact assessment. And this report gives the initial findings of the changes that the basic income recipients have experienced within the first 6 months of receiving the payment. And I'm pleased to say that the initial indications are positive for those in receipt. And already we are seeing a clear divergence in conditions between the control group, those who are not getting the payment, and those who are in receipt of the payment. So the research is primarily a longitudinal study, which will be carried out every 6 months of the programme. And we will continue to publish papers evaluating the data over the next 2 years of the research programme. So to share some of the initial findings from the first impact assessment. So every week, the group receiving the payment spends 1.5 hours more on research and experimentation, 1 hour more on management and administration, and 1 hour more presenting to audiences compared to the control group. The group receiving the payment has decreased the weekly hours worked in another sector by 3 hours compared to the control group. Life satisfaction. And I was always interested in this, on the well-being of the artists. So that life satisfaction, measured on a scale from 1 to 10, increased by more than 0.5 point for the group receiving the payment. Both depression and anxiety decreased by almost 10 percentage points for the group receiving the payment. And if you think of what that decrease in depression and anxiety can mean for the artist's creative output, so that's a really important statistic there. And the survey indicates that the group receiving the payment is investing more financially into their practice in areas, for example, such as equipment, such as materials, workspace, travel, advertising, marketing, all key to giving yourself a chance to becoming a successful artist. So we can see that in the group receiving the payment. And as I said, it's an essential part of the pilot, this research element, and it will inform government policy in future on the support for our artists and creative arts workers. So it's that unique opportunity to gather essential data and that we just simply did not have before. It was all anecdotal, evidence. Now we're gathering the hard facts and data, and by better understanding the impacts on the recipients and on the full ecology of the arts, this pilot scheme has the potential really to change the landscape of arts in Ireland and how we fund it, and will help us make further progress towards a more evidence-based approach to funding for the arts, to hopefully, as I said, an undeniable game changer in how we approach the arts, and really to tell the story about how the sector is based to a greater extent on data.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, I think it really will help make the case. And the NCFA, before my time, before Angela's time, has been calling for a long time for research for the arts. And like you say, this is just confirming what we all knew as people working in the arts sector. But now we can make the case, not just to our own government, but at EU level and at every level. It's great to see Ireland being a leader in this area. Now, it did make for very stark reading, even knowing anecdotally, as we did in NCFA from members, living conditions for artists, but it made for hard reading at times, looking for the report, looking at the information in the report. And Angela, I'd just like to come to you and ask you, maybe, did you feel that this made the case stronger as well for the continuation of this scheme beyond the pilot?
I think 100%, Maria, because I think we have to recognise kind of where we've come from. And I think the most upsetting detail is the baseline. And I suppose that's echoed by ourselves at First Music Contact, and Theatre Forum did a pay scale review this year. And I suppose you wouldn't have seen yet the income or the impact of the basic income trial yet, but we discovered that musicians and those working in theatre and dance are 33% worse off than other workers in our state. And then if you add about 8 or 9% cost of living decrease as well, you're looking at about 40+% for artists who are on or below the poverty line. I suppose, and it made for stark reading, but a number of things. One is having spent so many years pushing basic income through, it was such a relief to see it's working, because we were speaking in a vacuum, I think, up until now, because the trials we were relying on to look at the positives, none of them had completed. So I think that's the most important thing here is we, as the Minister says, are able to collect data to keep making the case for this to continue. I would echo, for me, the most impactful and joyous statistic was the 10% decrease in depression and anxiety, because that's what we were getting, email after email, conversation after conversation, and you carry that with you. And I think we're all very aware of it in our sector, of how challenging it is, how challenging COVID was, even with all the supports. So that, and anecdotally, I'm talking to a lot of musicians who are in receipt of the basic income, and just before penny one dropped in their account, that feeling of, I have to, panic less now. For the next 3 years, I get to take a deep breath and put that breath into my work. So that's really encouraging to see. What's also really encouraging, because we were always trying to make the case for basic income that it would end up in about a decade, hopefully being cost neutral to the state. And what's really encouraging to me is to see how much of the basic income the artists are putting back into the economy. They're spending more on hiring other artists. They're spending more, as the Minister said, on hiring other people in the arts ecosystem. So whether that's marketing or design or, and that coupled with the fact that I'm going to stop saying when this is basic income for all after the trial, I'm going to manifest it now. When this is a reality for all artists, we'll be able to see that both the production of artists going up, the satisfaction, life satisfaction, the reinvestment into each other and into the economy, coupled with the fact that there won't be a reliance on social protection by our entire sector. You can see the case for this being a net benefit to the state. And then you add that to the fact that we have a responsibility now to those 2,000 people. We have a responsibility to not let them fall off a cliff in 3 years or in 2 years' time. But we also, I think, now have the data to prove it's working. We also have the data of how many people qualified for this basic income. And I think that was really important as well. So we have it there to roll out. I suppose for me, it's really ringing through. The data is really ringing through this week, because I'm seeing report after report of how brilliantly the global music industry is doing and how great the profits are. And yet the other report on my desk is our pay scale review and now this data from basic income of how that's not making its way to the artists. Again, that's a really good, as the resource organisation for music, that's really good kind of data for me to have for making that case. But I also think on top of all of this, there is great interest globally in what we're doing here. And what I'm finding as I'm invited to speak about it is that a lot of people are saying, and it fills me with so much joy and pride. People are like, of course it was going to be Ireland. who else would it have been other than Ireland that would have kicked this off? So I think we have a global responsibility to those who are now waiting to see what Ireland do next. It will have a domino effect on how other states and other countries and other continents see, well, Ireland did a trial, they got the data, and they're now rolling it out to all artists. And can you imagine a world where globally artists are all supported to make work? Because artists got us out of COVID, artists are getting us through wars, they are the people we rely on the heart of society to give us a heart in society. Yeah. So I think it's really important to celebrate this data. I think it's early doors, yes. But hopefully we'll see an increase in the benefits. It will be really interesting, I think, if the information continues on the vertical it's going,
yes,
very hard for any future anybody to argue against basically.
To argue against it, yeah, when we have the data, yeah. No, it's interesting. I just read this morning, actually, research that they did in Denmark on the conditions for musicians, and it was a research around well-being, and that struck me as well with our information, looking at the increase in well-being, and we're definitely hearing that anecdotally from artists on the basic income, speaking to NCFA, that is their experience. But let's hear from the artist we have in the room with us today. Owen, I'd just like to ask you about having had a taste of the basic income now and being on the pilot, how important do you believe the continuation of the pilot would be? You've also seen the reports that were published and the stark information. I suppose the pieces that jumped out at me as well were around home ownership levels for artists compared to the general population, as well as control group versus BIA, the deprivation rates that were reported. It was really striking. So what is the difference that the basic income can bring to an artist, and why does it need to continue?
Yeah, so I think for me, what was interesting was the research coming out for the first 6 months gives a sense of the difficulties artists are facing at the moment. But I think we're actually just getting a sense of the benefits. Because I know that I found in the first 6 months, it was difficult to shake off all the ingrained habits and approaches I'd accumulated. Like to allow myself to think that, yes, this financial net is there, but I've spent 10 years learning to think in a particular way. I know personally, this pilot has changed my career. It came at a point where I was beginning to think seriously and question the sustainability of being an artist in Ireland. It's allowed me to think more ambitiously, to plan better, take more artistic risks. So rather than thinking about the next to a year, I'm thinking about the next few years. Artists are struggling with all of the things that everyone else is struggling with. Their situation is just compounded by precarious working conditions and low or no pay. So earlier this year, I took up the position of chair in Praxis, the Artist Union of Ireland. And I hear and see the range and scale of the problems on an unfortunately regular basis. It costs more to make art now. It costs more to tour it. We're struggling with diversity. Disabled artists have to fight for equal access. We've lost a lot of cultural spaces. In general, the cost of living is going up and artists are being paid the same or less, with the effect that artists can't afford to work in the industry or live what they want. Ultimately, artists want to make art. And I think what has been incredible to see with this, frankly, visionary pilot is that it allows those financial constraints to be less. And it means that there are more diverse voices and approaches in the work that we will get to see in Ireland. And I feel the 2,000 people on the pilot have been given a taste of a better way to live and work. And it's not one that removes all the difficulties of making art, but it removes some of the financial precarity around it, which is an extraordinary freeing feeling. And I hope the pilot is built upon just so that more people get to experience that.
Thank you for that, Owen. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to imagine an art sector in Ireland that doesn't have a scarcity mentality, and the difference that would make to us if we all could dream bigger. And hopefully that becomes a reality for more people. Minister, we can see already the benefits of the basic income and the importance of this to the sector. And I think we can look forward to seeing improved artistic outputs, but also, as you rightly point out, improved well-being of artists in Ireland and the benefits that that will bring to society as a whole. Could I just ask you if there was anything you would like to add before we finish up today's discussion?
Thanks, Maria. Just again to take the opportunity to thank everyone who took the time to apply for the basic income, and to the participants who are continuing to submit that invaluable rich detail in the responses to the survey questions. I think it's very interesting what Owen said there, that it's only really starting, and that it took a few months of this first 6 months to shake off this is actually happening. So the first few months probably didn't have that positive impact on your creative output, because it sounds like a sense of disbelief, Owen. So I find that really interesting. So it makes me more excited about the next batch of data that we will get. And I suppose Owen knows that in the survey from being a recipient, that it's in-depth questions on all aspects of your lives and practices, incomes and earnings, time use, work, job quality, well-being, mental health, and that's just naming a few of the elements. So I'd really like to acknowledge the participants in the control group, because their data is actually invaluable, but they don't get the weekly payment, but they're providing that same data that will really inform future government policy. So deeply grateful to all members in the control group, because it's given us the ability to compare and contrast the outcomes for those two groups, and that's essential research part of the basic income. Look, I'm really happy that we are at the stage where, there is a report. The reports are being published today, and I am encouraged by what we are seeing, but. And the positive impact it's having on the recipients. But I have to say, and I want you all to know, I'm really cognizant of the data which is emerging about the difficulties facing artists on a day-to-day basis. And it's something that I take really seriously. And as a result, I intend to hold a special conference next year called Status of the Artist. And it'll be in early 2024. And I want that to be an opportunity to bring everyone together. Let's bring the sector together and really examine the status of the artist in Ireland 100 years on from Yeats winning the Nobel Prize for Literature. I feel the time has come to critically review how the arts sector compares with other sectors, and to explore what can we do to really enhance the sustainability of careers in the arts. So I hope to see many people attending that. So look, I finally just to say, I do feel the basic income for the arts, it is that strong statement, and I hope you really see it at home and abroad. And as I said, not just for artists, but for everyone at home and abroad, about the value that we as a nation place on artistic practice, and the intrinsic value for our collective well-being, and its real importance to who we are, to our identity and our cultural distinctiveness on the global stage. As I think Owen and Angela referred to, these are early days of the 3-year scheme, and the reports do show that stark reality for artists, how immensely difficult it is for an artist to pursue their vocations, and that's what it is. It's inside an artist, it can't be denied. So we have to help it, we have to support it, and we all benefit from that if we do that. And that's why this pilot scheme is so important, and it has incredible potential for the arts in Ireland to thrive and to grow. And as I said earlier, that research element of the pilot is the key piece, because my hope is that it'll be undeniable for it to be rolled out for every single artist. So that's why I'm saying thank you so much to the control group. Thank you for all the participants who are receiving the payment. Keep giving us the data. Give us the facts, no matter how hard they are. I want to see that. I don't want to see it brushed over. I want to see the hard, gritty facts of what it's like to be an artist in Ireland with or without this payment. Because that's by doing that and by spending the time in that research, you're helping all your colleagues. So I'm immensely grateful for that. And I suppose I'll end on the message that the NCFA used in their ads during COVID, which I feel really gets to the heart of the value of the arts. No music, no dance, no film, no poetry, no theatre, no point. A vibrant and thriving arts sector is to the benefit of each and every one of us, and I give my absolute commitment to continue to work to advocate for the arts at government level, and just to say it's a privilege to be in a position to give that absolute commitment. You are valued, and we will always value this basic income is a game changer. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I think you'll have no worries with everybody getting behind this. As a sector, we are 100% behind this. And can I echo your thanks to those on the basic income, and more importantly, those in the control group that are putting all the work in to get us to this. There's so much to unpack in the reports that we've seen. There's a lot of discussion that has to be said. I know people present here today wanted to join in, and our apologies that that's not possible today. But as the Minister said, we are all going to gather as a sector in spring at this conference. And I have to say the National Campaign for the Arts can't wait for the conference status of the artist. And that will be the point when this sector, the stakeholders and everybody can contribute. We'll have had time then to digest all the information that's in the reports today, and NCFA will be consulting with people before, during and after that conference. And thank you to the Minister and Department for putting that conference on. I want to thank all the people again in the department who have worked so hard to get this initiative over the line, but also the researchers. Without this research, without this data, we can't make the case to government. So thank you to the researchers who are delivering these reports for us. Thank you to everybody that joined today. We're really looking forward to a fruitful dialogue once we've all had time to digest the harsh realities that are in the reports, but also the good news story of already a benefit seen to artists. And apologies again for the late start and the late arrival of our ISL interpreter. Lisa, you're very welcome. Apologies for the troubles at the beginning. And I can't wait to talk to everybody in depth about all of this. So thank you all again for today.